Shortly after 7 o'clock on the evening of November the 8th, 1974, Carol DaRonch parked her car in this parking lot at the Fashion Mall. Shortly after began what she now calls her personal nightmare. This is her story as she related it to police. Around 7 p.m., she parked her car in the west lot near Sears, went inside. While in the mall, Ms. DaRonch met some cousins, stopped to talk for a while, then walked back towards Sears. She was approached by a man near Walden's bookstore. This man identified himself as Officer Roslin, who said he had caught a suspect breaking into her car. He asked Ms. DaRonch to come out to the car to check it. For the next few minutes, they walked a winding route through the mall, outside and across the street to a laundromat. The man told Ms. DaRonch this was the Murray Police substation, but the suspect had been moved. He said they would have to go down to the main Murray Police Department to sign a complaint.
All right, it's my last day here in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. Came here for just under a week. We've been here for about 5-6 days, driving around finding some filming locations of some of my favorite movies. But in this case, this is more involving true crime. It was right here. Let's see if I can zoom in a little. This is called the Fashion Place Mall in Salt Lake City, the Fashion Place Mall. And it was open in 1972. Yeah, this mall opened in 1972. Where this Dillard's is the original site of the Sears that, I don't know, it's been about 5 years or so. The Sears was knocked down. The entire building was actually demolished and they built up the Dillard's here. So it's not in the original frame of where the building was, but it's in the same place. The mountains in the background still line up from the pictures. It was November 8th, 1974. The Ted Bundy case of the one that got away, Carol DaRonch, who still, from what I read online, lives in this area, not too far from here, where her family home was. We're on November 8, 1974. She came here to meet some friends or some cousins, and she parked on this side of Sears, somewhere on this side of the parking lot. And she went inside, hung out with her friends. I've been looking up old archive news footage from Salt Lake City news media from back in those days. And the reporter from back then was standing out here and said she was meeting cousins. So I'll go with that. So she came here to meet some cousins, and she was standing near the Walden bookstore when she was approached by a guy that introduced himself as Detective Roslin. And he must have watched her go inside where she parked the car because he knew her license plate number. He approached her and said, "Hey, do you drive was it a Camaro?" I know she had a sports car, license plate such. And she says, "Yeah, that's my car," which is funny because I other than having a vanity plate, I don't think I've ever known any of my license plates off the top of my head. But he said, "Hey, someone tried to break into your car. I need you to come with me, and we're gonna have to write a report." So she walked out to the parking lot, out here on this side of the parking lot. Now the parking lot's still obviously in the same place, nothing's changed. That building's new. And when they got to her car, she says she didn't notice anything wrong with the car and thought like, "Hey, it's no big deal." And he says, "No, I need you to come with me to write a report at the substation that's just across the street." I'm gonna go over there and show where he took her. All right, I'm taking a quick video from inside the mall. So down there where the Dillard's is where the Sears would have been, which is the entrance. We've been sitting inside the mall for like the past, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, reading transcripts of when Carol Ann DaRonch said in court and in police interviews. But she came up Sears. What'd she say? She went west?
Yeah.
But we're actually heading north, so west would be up here and to the left.
Yeah.
So we've been looking online, trying to find where the Walden Books was back in 1974. And Michael found one map of what the store looked like, but it was so small that everything was blurry. And somewhere on a website just now, she found, the same map, but clear, of where everything was here laid out when they first opened, which was 1972, and the whole incident with Ted Bundy and Carol DaRonch was only 2 years later.
She talks about it
in her testimony. She mentions this store here was called what? Castleton's. And what happened there in her story?
This is where she turned left. And
she turned left. She went towards, what was the name of the store?
Our Box.
Our Box. We'll just go with that, even though we don't know what the store was. So she walked in this direction. All right, so we found the spot approximately where the Walden's Books location was back in 1974. Now the mall could have been updated since then. I'm sure maybe the walls, all this has been updated. Don't know if they've extended it far enough for there to be more stores. But the shop that she went into, by reading online in her transcript, it was the second store to the end of this entrance. And today, yeah, it's hard to see on here, but today it would be the Mac store right here. So if it wasn't right in front of this door, it's in this general vicinity right here where the Walden Books was. So Carol DaRonch was sitting here looking through the window. She wasn't inside the shop when a guy approached her and introduced himself as a Detective Roseman. I've heard some websites say Roseman, but I think I've heard Carol DaRonch in interviews say Roseman, and that someone had tried to break into her car and that she needed to come with him to the car. They go outside, they check her car, and her car looks fine. And he says, well, I still need you to come with me to the police substation just down the street or across the street to write a report. I'm gonna go over there to where that building is, and crazy enough, it looks the same today than it did all those years ago. But we're at the Fashion Place Mall in Murray, Utah, and it was approximately right here. If these shop fronts haven't changed, it was definitely this store right here, right in front of the Mac store. But if they've, sometimes they make one store into two or knock down a wall and make two stores into one, it would have been somewhere in this general vicinity right here. But if everything stays the same, it was right here at the Mac store. Now we're gonna go out to the parking lot again and to the next stop where he walked her over saying it was a police substation. All right, the next stop in the Ted Bundy, Carol DaRonch incident where she was able to get away from him. So this is interesting. We're right across the street from the mall. Let me turn my camera around. So there's the mall right across the street. When he told her, hey, we got to go to the police substation right across the street to write a report, she went along with them. You got to remember, this was an 18-year-old girl, man. Some grown-ass adults probably wouldn't know how to handle a situation. You believe a person that says that they're an authority figure. So she went along with them, like, okay, he says, right this way. And he walked. And what's crazy about this situation, this building still looks the same. I have footage of the news, the local news, a couple days after the incident when it was all over the local news. This at the time was a laundromat on the front side, but this building looks the same. This looks the same. The little piece that darts off over the edge of the roof is still the same. This is exactly the building where Ted Bundy brought Carol DaRonch and said that they were gonna go into the police substation. So he comes right up here to this door and he pulls on this door and it was locked. And it was right at that door. Crazy that it's still here. And obviously the door could have changed, probably a different door, but the building is still the same building and the door's in the same place. He went up to that door, he pulled on it, he goes, oh, it's locked. We're gonna have to go to the actual police station. And he said, I'm gonna need you to come with me to the police department. And he walked over, and right here on this road, his car, the VW that we've seen a million times in documentaries, and we saw it last year in a crime museum at Pigeon Forge, but the car was parked right on the side of the curb right here, and he told her, hey, I need you to come with me to the police department. And even at 18 years old, as young as she was, she thought to ask him, hey, can I see a badge? And he was ready for that question because he opened up his wallet and provided a badge that was, believable to a young girl, again, just graduated high school. And she thought it was weird that he was in a Volkswagen Bug and not some kind of police-looking car. But I believe in her statement, she said, it could have been some kind of undercover thing. But she did notice that he had alcohol in his breath. And that was a little strange. So then they took off in this direction. Don't know the exact route they took, but we're going to take the more direct route. It's probably the route they took to where the next stop is. This was the spot that he showed up saying it was a police substation. Still the same building. All right, we're gonna go up to the next stop of after she got in the car where they went next. All right, so we're pulling out of the parking lot where the fake police substation was. There's the mall. Carol DaRonch had just gotten in the car with Bundy.
1100 South, then turn left onto South 300 East, South Fashion Boulevard.
Don't mind the dirty window of us traveling a lot the last couple days. But it was right here at this light. Now, I'm not from this area, but everything I read, the police department would have been to the right. So when Ted Bundy got up here and made a left, she knew something was wrong. Like, shit, this isn't good. Now, I know that Carol DaRonch is big on the internet. I follow her on Facebook. She has her own YouTube channel. She posts some really interesting videos, not just of her particular, the incident that happened with her and Ted Bundy, other cases, a lot of Ted Bundy cases. But if for whatever reason she ever sees this, I hope she, you chime in and correct anything if I said in the wrong direction. But once they started heading left up there at the light we just turned at, she knew something was wrong. And like, wait a second, the police department's in the other direction. So once we get past this light, it's where Ted Bundy stopped the car. There's a school crossing guard because the school is right there. So just up ahead on the right, I don't think we're going to be able to pull over where it is, right where all these cars are. See if we can find a place to pull over. It looks like it's the pickup time for the school.
Yeah, bad time.
Where this line of cars are is where Ted Bundy pulled over right here, give or take 5 car spaces, but he pulled over right here and put a handcuff on her left wrist. And again, as an 18-year-old young lady, she had the wherewithal to fight back and kick, and she pushed her side door open on the VW. Go up there where that car is, maybe just in front of that one. And she fell back out of the car. And Ted Bundy, now this is in Carol DaRonch's words, he didn't walk around the car like I've read. He just went right through the car. He went over the middle console, over her seat, and followed her out the door that she went out of. And I don't know ever that Bundy carried a gun on him in any of the crimes that we've always heard and seen documentaries on. But she claims that he threatened her with a gun. Now, if he actually showed it or he just said it, I don't know. But he definitely had that crowbar that we've always heard that he would beat his victims over the head with, knock them unconscious, and that's how he'd take them. But it was right here, right in front of the school. She fell out. She said he climbed through the car, and they, little struggle, pushing, shoving, whatever happened, and she got away. He couldn't put the second handcuff on her right wrist. Or what I've heard is that Bundy used to remove the seat of his passenger side of the Volkswagen, and he had like a metal ring, some kind of steel, where he would handcuff his victims to, one handcuff on the wrist and one would be to the car so they couldn't get out. But in her case, that the second part of the handcuff never got, clicked on. He put one on her left wrist. She fell out, and as they struggled for a bit, a car was coming, lucky for her, this way. Mary and Wilbur Wash, I want to say was their name. They were heading this way, and there's all kind of transcripts online of their statements that they were on their way to go shopping. It was like 8 o'clock at night in the evening when it happened, and Carol DaRonch just ran beeline for it. Imagine how scared you are, 18-year-old. She just ran right to the car, opened the passenger door, and jumped in. I think from what I've heard, she jumped on the lap of Mary Wash, and they were like, go, 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 go. And they went back, and they headed to the police department. And they gave their statement, and thank God for Carol Ann DaRonch getting away, was someone that could give eyewitness, description of what he looked like, the car, the Volkswagen, and that's where, a few years later, he was caught in the description she gave. She picked him out of a lineup, and he got arrested. There's another stop that I'm going to make on this tour. I was going to end it here, but there's a couple other locations because, unfortunately, on the night that Carol Ann DaRonch got away, Bundy sped off in this direction away from the police department and wound his way to a town nearby called Bountiful, Utah. I'm going to see how long the drive is to get there. I think it's like 20, 25 minutes. This is our last day here, and we still got to pack to head home. But, thank God Carol DaRonch was able to break away, but unfortunately led to him finding someone else that night. He drove out to Bountiful, Utah, and was driving by a high school where there was a play going on that night. And a high school girl, 17-year-old Deborah Kent, was out in the parking lot. I'm gonna head over there, and if I can continue the story from there, I will. If not, I'll update this video at the end and end it. But this is it from where Carol Ann DaRonch broke away from Ted Bundy, ran right here across the street, right here, and jumped in the car and was able to get away. All right, so we just left the Fashion Place Mall like 20 minutes ago. I was gonna continue the rest of the story of what happened that night after Carol Ann DaRonch got away from Ted Bundy and he drove off. It was great for her that she got away, but unfortunately, another young lady was taken by him and wound up getting killed. When Bundy left the front of that school and Carol DaRonch got in the car with the other folks that took her to the police department, he took off and went driving around and wound up in a little town just not too far from where they were at. It's called Bountiful, Utah. And he went to the high school. What's the name of the high school?
From
Viewmont High School in Bountiful, Utah. Viewmont High School. He started driving around. There's reports of people that say they saw him inside. They were doing a play, some kind of theater show. But there was a young lady, a senior there, 17-year-old Deborah Kent, that was there with her parents, and she was sent to go pick up her two little brothers that were at a bowling alley, and she had the keys of the car, and she never made it to the car. Later that night, when the parents never saw her return, they went outside just to check on them. The car had never moved, so she never made it to the car. The police were called, and outside near the parking lot on the sidewalk, they found a set of handcuff keys. And they'd already known about the incident that happened 2 hours earlier at the mall with Carol Ann DaRonch. And what they were able to figure out is that those handcuff keys matched the handcuff that was locked onto Carol Ann DaRonch's wrist. So they knew the two situations were connected. Where it turned out that Deborah Kent was never seen again. Ted Bundy, did what he did. And it was during the last night of Ted Bundy's life, right before he was set to be executed. He gave long interviews trying to wrap up cases that, different jurisdictions, different police departments didn't know where these bodies were that they thought might be tied to him. He confessed to up to 30 that night that he could confirm. There was probably more victims. But what he said about Deborah Kent is that he didn't kill her right away, that he brought her to his home that he had here, which is right behind me. I'm gonna go outside and document it. And that he didn't kill her right away. It was sometime during that night. And when he killed her, he gave them, at that time, they still hadn't found her. It had been over 15 years from when she went missing to when he got executed. They hadn't found her body. And he gave a general description of where her body was. And it was just recently, in the past year, 2 years, that I read that in that area where he said they found bones that didn't match the DNA of Deborah Kent. So at least we know he told the truth about that. There were some stories that he told I wasn't so sure about. But I'm gonna go outside and show the apartment that Ted Bundy was renting that apparently he brought Deborah Kent to. Maybe some of the other victims here in Utah, but that's what he said, that he brought her here that night, killed her later on that night, and then he, dumped her where he said, and they wound up finding her there many years later. But I'm gonna go outside and show the apartment. So right here is the apartment. Here's where Ted Bundy was living from, it's just over a year, 1974 to 75. He was going to law school at the University of Utah nearby. And it was just inside this door into the apartment up to the right where those two windows are, that was his apartment. There's a few videos online. It's a whole long story to tell. I can't tell that story here now, but there's many, many videos that you could see online, but they definitely showed the inside of the apartment. It was done by the young man that bought that infamous VW Bug. At some point, Ted Bundy put it up for sale, and the young kid that bought it, he was like high school age, even went upstairs and describes hanging out with Ted Bundy up there before he took the car. But in that video, I want to say it was college students that were renting it. Video was made a few years back. They show the inside of the apartment and how it's changed since the time that he was up there. Pretty much looks the same, but that's the apartment. We'll go across the street real quick. There is a cellar I don't know what you call it, like a little basement that's just to the side of the house that in that video they showed. Could that be where he kept, the bodies overnight? Or did he somehow get them up the stairs? Because when you go in the main door, when you go up the main door, the stairs are right there to the top. And then to the right was the door of his apartment. But over here on the side, there's a little thing that pops open where it goes down underneath. It's just like a little basement. I don't know if it's used for storage or for storms, but it was right there that maybe he kept Deborah Kent that night. But just want to make a quick video here. They got cameras everywhere. Obviously, people come here from true crime. No trespassing cameras, no trespassing. There was a lot of, like me, true crime people that come by. But this is the house, the apartment that Ted Bundy rented, 74 to 75, right up the stairs and to the right. It was apartment 2 back then. All right.